I do, but I think most writers would say that they always love the book they're working on or their latest book. And I think that's because you grow as you write. And whether you stay in the same genre or whether you expand as I have done from mysteries to this more literary book. And in fact, even before the mysteries, I had written true crime about, there were 2 books about cases in Nashville that were high profile, and I had a great time working on those, but I wanted to go to something else. And so I think it's fine to expand. Some people say, oh, you have a brand and you have your audience and they don't want you to write something else. But I don't know. I don't think that is necessarily true, because the people I love the family and friends that are so loyal and so supportive of me, and they like my mysteries, but they have been very supportive of Prodigal.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. Have a great author on the show. It's almost Thanksgiving where she is. I've already had Thanksgiving in Canada, but we're looking forward to turkey and pie and all that great stuff. And Phyllis is here to talk about her book, talk about all the great things happening with her. She had a book launch party that went really well, which we're going to talk about. I'm really excited to have Phyllis on the podcast. Phyllis, welcome to Living the Next Chapter.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Tell everybody, Phyllis, where are you in this big world of ours?
I am in Nashville, Tennessee.
Music City.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Music City, USA.
Are you a music lover?
I am a music lover. I'm not a professional musician, but I play the piano and have friends that I play music with for fun. But I'm not one of the many professional musicians here in Nashville.
So you're going to be getting ready for a family coming for Thanksgiving. What kind of music do you put on in your house? Is there something that you like to listen to that just makes you happy?
Oh, I just put on something that's kind of mellow, kind of soft, and I don't know. I think it's a time for memories, and so I'll just put on something that's a little bit reminiscent of all the Thanksgivings past.
What I love about music is you can press play on a song and it takes you back to a different time, right? With family, friends.
Yeah.
There's songs that if I put on, I transport myself back to that place. I just love what music can do. It's great.
Yes, I do too. Music's just a wonderful thing to bring people together.
Now, on top of that, that's one creative outlet. That's what I like to do. I'm a musician. One thing I'm not at this point is an author, which you are, which is amazing. And that's why we do this show. Can you tell everybody, Phyllis, what was it for you that made you interested in the idea of becoming an author?
I have a story about when I was 12 years old. And actually, even before then, I loved to tell stories and listen to stories. And I would dry dishes when my mother's washing dishes, and we'd tell stories to each other. And when the Sunday papers came with the comics, the funny papers, I would cut them out, and the little speech clouds, I would cut them out and write my own stories in there with the illustrations. So I did that. I just had this great love of stories. When I was 12, in the 6th grade, I read a book that was not like all the other books that I'd been reading as a child. It was a little bit of a romance, though it was in my school library, so it wasn't anything steamy. But it was something I hadn't read before, and I thought, oh, I could do this. I could write a book like this. And so I took out my pencil and lined paper, and wrote about 30, 35 pages. And then I stopped, and I wasn't finished with the story, but I thought, I'm going to let some people read it and see what they think about it. And so I gave the story to my friends, my girlfriends, and of course they all said, "Oh, we love it. We love it. This is so good. So good." And so then I took it back, and I was going to finish it, and I thought, well, I might better read it myself before I go on. And so I did, and it was so bad. So bad. And I don't know whatever happened to it. I don't know if I burned it, if I threw it away. I don't know. But I suppose that could have dissuaded me from being a writer, but it didn't. It made me think, well, I could be a writer because I know when something is good or when it's bad. Mine was bad. I know that. And a writer does have to be able to judge. So that was sort of my first time to really try to write. And I I continued to write and didn't send anything out until I was in my 20s, I guess. And when I was late 20s, that's when I got my first articles published in a family magazine. And then after that, I had some short stories published, and I won't go on with every little detail of my writing career, but it took me a long time before I ever began to write books that got published.
Okay. What kind of books do you like to read as a reader?
Well, I always have loved mysteries, and I have a mystery series. I love an amateur sleuth. That's what mine is, Agatha Christie. But I also read literary novels. Part of that is because I think it's important for me to read literary novels, but I love them too, because uh, those are books that you come away with something and you just say, oh, oh, something you didn't realize before. So I'm always reading mysteries and literary novels, and I love these authors like Louise Penny and Tana French, who sort of combined these two types of writing. And in fact, I think they're called literary mysteries. So those are some of the kinds of books that I'm really reading most of the time. And of course, I've read a lot of Southern literature as I have taught in literature in college. So Flannery O'Connor, Eudora Welty, all of those. Uh, yeah, Pat Conroy is another one that I really like. So yeah, I read a lot and a lot of different things.
Okay. So you talk about teaching and creative writing. Let's pretend that it's day one of creative writing class. We're all gathered here as listeners, and myself included. We're sitting at our desk. You come in to help us on our journey as a creative writer. Is there anything that you would talk as like an introductory to creative writing for somebody new? What would you tell us about it as a teacher? Come on.
I usually start, instead of talking to them about writing, I say, get out your pens, your paper, and yes. And I'll give some kind of prompt, and then let you write. And then that gives us a basis for us to talk. One of the prompts that I used a lot, I would bring in hats, and I would say, pick a hat, and then write from the point of view of the person wearing that hat. And it might be anything from a hard hat to a hat that someone might wear, an old-fashioned driving Miss Daisy hat. I have all kinds of, probably 20, 25 hats that I would use. And people, you would pick one that you would like. If I had hats, what kind of hat do you think you might pick, Dave?
Oh, wow. Okay. You have me at this. I love this idea, by the way.
Now,
I know you flipped it on me. I love that you did this. I love this. That's exactly what I was hoping for when we went this path. I like the idea of a construction hat.
Okay.
Because for me, that's somebody who's building. That's somebody who's good with their hands, maybe. Somebody that likes the creative process, likes to see results. Somebody who's organized, somebody with a skill or a talent that maybe other people don't have. So I'd love to kind of write from that perspective as somebody who's a creative, hands-on person.
So I would say that's great. You're going to have 15 minutes to write something about this construction worker. And some of the things that you just said would be fine, or you might want to write something in first person and say, I was out on a construction job and this happened to me. However you want to do it. And then we go around and we read and we talk about what we love about all the different passages that we're reading. And that begins to build a feeling of trust among us. We don't find anything wrong with anything. We just say, oh, I like this guy. You were so descriptive and so detailed about that. I could really visualize that construction worker out there on a crane or something.
Yeah.
And so we do that. And at the end, that usually takes the whole period. And at the end, they are just so passionate about what they're doing and why they're there. And it hasn't been anything about me or what I know so far. It's that they have seen something in them that they wanted to come out. That's why they're in this class. And then the next class, we can talk more about, get into some nuts and bolts about what we're going to do in the class and what we hope will come out of it. But that first class is always a real hands-on. You write. I've had students say, "You mean we have to write?" And I say, "Yes, this is a writing class. You do have to write. That's what you're here for."
Yeah, that's good, because I do hear authors say that they either early in their journey or during their journey as an author, they do get stuck at times. They feel like the story's not developing. They're having some struggle. So these writing prompts are really good, even if it's not necessarily related to the book you're writing, but just to get you back into the writing process and be creative. The power of a writing prompt is a really good tool, right?
We do that all the time. Every class we begin with a prompt, and this is not. We wouldn't have time to read them all every time. So this is they keep their notebook and they write in it. And so here's the prompt today, and then we get on with our class after about 15 minutes. But I think they seem to love the prompts, because they're able to write about something they'd never really thought about before.
Okay, so for you, what was the prompt to write Prodigal, the novel? What was it for you that made you go, I have this desire to write, and this is what I'm going to write about? What was that initial prompt for you?
Actually, it was an inspiration of another book. There's an author named William Kent Kruger, you may know. He's from the Midwest, and he's well known for writing mysteries. But I was at a writing conference maybe 10 years ago, and he was there talking about his book, Ordinary Grace. And he said it was just a book that he was compelled to write, and it was a departure from the mysteries for which he is so well known. Now, there is mystery in this book, but it's very literary. And it starts in a small town. It's set in a small town in the Midwest. And I was just so taken by that book and the characters. And I thought about growing up in a small town myself in the South, but many of the characters in his book could have been my neighbors too. And I began to think about Prodigal. Now, I was writing other things at the time, and this just was in the back of my mind for a while. And I had a mystery series going. All of them took place in exotic settings, and so I had been to Provence and Ireland and Italy to write those mysteries. And I thought I would go for the fourth one, but then the pandemic happened. And so it was during that time of the pandemic that I really got down into Prodigal, which I'd been wanting to write. Something about this small town and this family in the small town, and something that was more literary than anything that I had written. But I can thank Ordinary Grace for being an inspiration to me.
As an author, as you write multiple books, I can't imagine just like writing, like say book number one, the first one you wrote, to put it on the shelf and never think about it again. Like it's a piece of you that you wrote that book, and each book kind of lends itself to the next book, whether it's related in topic and in story, or just the fact that you're building on the skills that you develop over time, right? So what is your relationship with all of these different books over time? Do you still love and cherish book one as you're now talking about Prodigal?
I do, but I think most writers would say that they always love the book they're working on or their latest book. And I think that's because you grow as you write. And whether you stay in the same genre or whether you expand as I have done from mysteries to this more literary book. And in fact, even before the mysteries, I had written true crime about. There were two books about cases in Nashville that were high profile, and I had a great time working on those, but I wanted to go to something else. And so I think it's fine to expand. Some people say, oh, you have a brand and you have your audience, and they don't want you to write something else. But I don't know. I don't think that is necessarily true, because the people I love the family and friends that are so loyal and so supportive of me, and they like my mysteries, but they have been very supportive of Prodigal.
Okay, because I would think that if you're writing, like, say, a romance novel, you have a certain audience that loves romance novels. But then you go write a historical fiction that has no romance in it at all, and your audience goes, Phyllis, what? Where are you going? Like, why are you writing this? Like, I love what you do. Why are you changing? Is it like you have to, like, create a new community around a new project that's not related to what you've done in the past?
I don't know. I'm not famous enough to know about that.
There you go.
I do believe if you have people that really like you and trust that you're going to write a book that they love, that they'll probably follow you. That's what I think. That's what I hope. And that's what I'm hoping with Prodigal.
Yeah. We see it in music. We see a musician that has, they're a jazz player, a blues player, and then they do something different, like a holiday album. And you're like, really? But it sounds like them.
That's
Even though it's different, it sounds like them. So as an author, it might be different, but it sounds like you.
right. It's and you have, if readers are loyal, faithful readers, and they like what you do, they trust that you're going to be able to pull this off. It may be different from what they've been reading, but I know writer Tana French is an Irish writer, and I love her mysteries and have read all of them. I guess all of the it's about the Dublin murder squad, and she's very literary. There's always an exciting mystery page turner thing, but the language and the underlying wisdom is just beyond just a normal whodunit kind of book. And I was a little bit disappointed that she stopped writing about the Dublin murder squad, and she has written 2 other books. One is the Searcher, and maybe the Hunter or the Trespasser, and I've read them. And the first one, I thought, I don't know, I don't love this as much as I did love the Dublin murder squad, but I liked it. And I wanted to read the next one. And the next one I really was into even more. And so I think if you're a writer and you have an audience and they like what you write, they will follow you. I hope so.
Okay. Take us through Prodigal. First of all, I got to tell you, I love the cover of your book. It's beautiful. But take us through Prodigal. What is the story behind Prodigal? Can you give us like an overarching kind of theme for the book?
Yes. The story begins with in a small town on the 4th of July, and there is a robbery in a convenience store and a shooting, and our main character, Connor Burdett, did not pull the trigger, and we know that at the beginning, but he disappears. And then we pick up that story 10 years later. And anyone who knows the story of the prodigal son from the Bible probably knows, oh, he's coming back. And he does. He does. So 10 years later, a couple of things happen. His wealthy grandmother dies, and there's a lot going on around her will, and he comes back, and then he begins to have to face a lot of mistakes that he made before he left, a lot of secrets. And I guess the secrets actually form the framework of the book, and so I won't give all of those away. But the story evolves into a story really of forgiveness. Will he be forgiven, and will he forgive himself? And what is the cost of forgiveness? How does sacrifice figure in? And so it's about forgiveness, sacrifice, redemption. Those are kind of the underlying that's the underlying wisdom of this story. But there's plenty of just what's going to happen next to this family, because he goes back and he has a brother and a sister, and his brother is married. There are 2 children, and he has parents, and the relationships, the family dynamics, I think are pretty interesting, and so the story, just one secret after another comes out, and we see how that's going to affect. Is he going to be able to stay? Is he going to leave? What's going to happen? So that's the prodigal in a nutshell, I guess.
There you go. Okay. Now, you said you had a book launch party recently. Tell us what happened. Like, you got together with some people, some readers, and kind of explain to me, because I think a lot of people that write, they don't really have planned out kind of how they're going to launch their book, how they're going to celebrate the book coming into the world. But a book launch party sounds like a great idea. Take us behind the scenes. What happened?
I think you could have a book launch party with just friends. You could have whatever kind of party and celebrate that your book's coming out. I was really very fortunate that this independent bookstore, Parnassus, here in Nashville, they've had me to come in and introduce my books there several times when I've had books. This is my seventh book, and I think I've done maybe 4 book launches there. And so I was very fortunate that they wanted me to come into the bookstore, and they promoted the launch. And of course, I promoted the launch on social media. So a lot of people there were people I knew, but not everybody, because some people just follow Parnassus social media, and they come to book launches. So we had about 100 people, and they like for the writer to come in there with someone so that we could discuss, like you and I are discussing right now. If you were here in Nashville, you could be my conversation partner.
I would love to do
and you
that.
would be
I would
very
love it.
good. So that's what they like. And so I asked a former professor of mine who taught literature at one of the universities where I got my master's degree, and she and I have become friends long after she was my professor. We're just friends now, and so I knew she would do a good job of delving into the book and asking probing questions, and she did. So that was the book launch. People came. That Parnassus ordered the books, so they had books there for sale, and I signed them and signed them all at the beginning before we actually started the program, and then we had about 45 minutes of talking and discussing Prodigal. And then questions and answers. We had a little time for that. And then at about an hour, then the program itself was really over, but they made it available for me to sign books for people who wanted them personalized. And so that's what the book launch was. I wish you could have been there. It was really, really great. And I posted some photos on my website. My website is just phyllisgobbell.com. It's very easy to remember. I don't have a name for it like you do, Living the Next Chapter, but if you remember my name, phyllisgobbell.com, it's easy to find my website. And I posted some photos from the launch.
Excellent. So you mentioned there was a question and answer period. What kind of questions were you asked from the people that were attending?
I'm trying to remember what they asked and what Linda asked. I know one person said, "Do you know when you start a book, do you know where it's going?" And I thought that was a very good question, and I'm asked that quite often. And my answer was that I always know where the book's going to end, but I don't know how I'm going to get there. And I may have an idea of some things that are going to get me there. And when I write them, they don't work and I have to change them. And I may suddenly have an idea that I hadn't had before. So the middle, I call it the muddy middle. But in a way, I guess it could be called the magic middle, because that's where everything takes place that you don't necessarily predict or expect. And I still am always going toward that ending, and that rarely changes. I may expand it. I may add something before the ending that I hadn't planned on, but I know where that book is going when I begin. Just as surely as I know the beginning, I know the end.
Okay. See, no, that's nice to hear. I like how you did that. You unpacked the whole process for us, and just that was great.
And it was a good question that the man asked. Mm-hmm.
It's a great question. That's a very good question. I love the fact that you have time with readers. Like, that's kind of why I do my podcast, is I want people to hear your voice and then go, oh, I want to go support Phyllis. I want to go get all of her books because I love her and be part of your community. I think it gives a deeper connection between the reader and the author to hear how the book came to be, the process of writing it, what you love about the book yourself as the author, and then just to kind of be able to give the opportunity, the platform for you to talk directly to the reader. So with that in mind, Phyllis, I have a copy of your book. I'm a new purchaser. I've just my first book from you. Prodigals will be my first time reading you as an author. Did you have a special message for a new reader who's reading your books for the very first time? What do you want them to know?
That's a good question, Dave. And I knew you were going to ask it. I've thought about it a little bit, and I can't get away from the idea that when you, as a reader, you open my book and you are asking me, well, what do you want me to know? I can't get away from the fact that I am supposed to draw you in immediately, and if I don't, I haven't done my job. So I'm hoping that from the very first, you will be drawn in. I would say that you may have questions at the first. You may, and that's a good thing. I can't answer every question on page 1, and I don't want to. I want you to be curious, so you'll want to read on. But I would say, trust me, and trust me that you will think this is a worthwhile book, that when you finish, you will be glad that you spent this time reading the book. That's what I guess I would say to you.
I love it. It's great, Phyllis. Congratulations on this book and all of your books. Like, you have so many things out there in the world for us as readers to fall in love with. So that's exciting. We do want to send people again to the website. So Phyllis, tell us again the name of your website and maybe where you're most active on social media if we wanted to connect with you.
I'm most active on Facebook. I also post things on Instagram, but you can't go very far on Instagram. But I do post on Facebook, and my website is www.phyllisgobbell.com. And if you remember my name, that's pretty easy. And there's a place to sign up for my mailing list, and there are pages on my website about my books and about events and about everything that probably tell you much more than you ever want to know about me. But I will say this about readers. I appreciate readers so much. And I love to meet with book clubs. And I do have book clubs that I've been meeting with a lot, and some that are scheduled for. I don't think I have any until January, but have some book clubs scheduled. And if there's a book club in Canada that would like me to Zoom with you, I will do that too, because I just
Excellent.
love talking to readers.
Amazing. And maybe a creative writing book club, maybe, possibly. You could also help with that as well.
Oh my, I'll have to think about that.
There you go. Help those next generation of authors.
Give them a prompt. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, do exactly what you did to me.
Oh.
I like it.
Okay.
I like it. It was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Phyllis, I'll have all the information for everybody in the show notes to connect with Phyllis, the website, Facebook, all that information will be there in the notes. Phyllis, again, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for taking time out of your Thanksgiving preparations. You have lots of busy things going on, but the fact that you took time to talk to us, really appreciate it. And I just want to close off with this, Phyllis. Your book is coming out in the world. You're excited about it. The name of my show is Living the Next Chapter. So I have to kind of use the name of my own podcast in my question. How are you, Phyllis, living your next chapter?
I am in my next chapter after retirement. I retired from teaching in college 2 years ago.
Nice.
And now living my next chapter. It's pretty much based on writing and being with our family. But that's mainly what I'm doing now. I'm having time to write that I just never did before. So that's how I'm living this chapter of my life.
Beautiful. And that's kind of a great way to end off, Phyllis. Thank you so much for being part of the podcast.
Thank you, Dave. It's been fun.
Awesome.
I appreciate
Excellent. Hey, thanks for listening to Living the Next Chapter. I'm glad you stayed all the way to the end. You're my new bestie. And the one thing I like to do with my besties is enjoy time together over a cup of coffee. Now, one thing missing in the equation is my coffee cup is empty. And what I would love if, after 390 plus episodes roughly, if you found any value in the podcast and you want to say, hey, Dave, do you need a refill of your coffee cup? I'm looking at it right now, and you know what? It's looking kind of sad. There's not much in the coffee cup. If you want to help support the podcast, I would love you forever as besties and celebrate coffee with you. You can celebrate and support the show at our website using our Buy Me a Coffee link. And all the money goes back into the podcast. And we also like to give it to other podcasters. So if you want to support the show, head over to livingthenextchapter.com and let's top it up. Thank you guys. Thanks for listening. Cheers.